Story 1. The Reed, the Clay, and the Clerk Who Couldn't Forget. Section 1. City of Scribes, you awake to the soft trickle of a canal and the distant, dry scrape of reeds against stone. It is the year 2300 BCE, and you are in Uruk the bustling, heart of ancient Sumer, near the banks of the Euphrates. The sky is pale and hot, the color of baked linen. And everywhere around you, men and women move slowly through alleys of mud brick buildings, carrying baskets, jars, and long-handled tools. But you carry something different. You are a scribe, or more precisely, an apprentice scribe, posted to the administrative offices of a small temple estate. Your tools are not blades or baskets, but things that must be crafted by hand every morning before work begins. A lump of river clay, a sharpened reed stylus, and a smooth, flat board on which to roll and shape the writing surface. Welcome to the first office job in human history. You wouldn't call it that, of course. But this small, dusty workplace with its ledgers, receipts, memos, audits, and complaints is the ancestor of every modern bureaucracy. And like your modern counterparts, you are already running late. The small administrative chamber where you work smells faintly of damp clay and goat hide. Your supervisor, a balding man with sun-creased eyes and a permanent scowl, has already started shaping the day's blank tablets. The finished ones are laid out on woven mats to dry, stacked like records awaiting review. Each one is a story. Not the kind sung by bards, but the kind that governs food and labor. There are lists of barley delivered, silver weighed, oxen rented, and temple staff assigned their rations. There are complaints about short portions, records of exchanged goods, and announcements carved by the temple overseer himself, who, in your opinion, enjoys his title more than he enjoys accuracy. The reed stylus, cut at an angle, presses tiny wedge-shaped signs, cuneiform, into the clay with slow, careful precision. Each mark has its rhythm. Tap for a number. Press and twist for a title. Pull gently for a name. Scribes like you don't just write. You preserve. You organize. You translate human memory into durable, decipherable lines. You invent systems. In fact, much of what you're using hasn't existed for more than a few generations. The signs, the stylus, the recording of quantities. Some of it still confuses your own elders. But here's the truth. These marks are changing the world. Let's step back. Just a few centuries earlier, nobody in Sumer was writing anything. Farmers grew barley, herders raised goats, and trade was managed face to face. But as the temples expanded, first as spiritual centers, then as economic powerhouses, they began to oversee immense agricultural estates. Barley was distributed, not just to priests, but to laborers. Wool, grain, meat, beer, and silver flowed in and out like water through a net. Memory alone couldn't keep up. And so, at some point, historians argue about exactly when someone began using small clay tokens to represent quantities. One barley token, one sheep token. They were stored in sealed clay envelopes and used as receipts. But even this grew cumbersome. People needed to know what was in the envelopes without breaking them. And so someone pressed the token's shape into the clay itself. That was the moment. From symbols in clay to symbols for speech. The first writing was not poetry. It was not myth. It was accounting. A list. And now, you, this sleepy clerk of Uruk, are among the first people in human history to do something that millions would later do with paper, then typewriters, then spreadsheets. You record who owes what, to whom, and when it's due. This morning, your assignment is to transcribe a delivery inventory. The barley has arrived late, and the team unloading it says half the sacks are missing. The temple insists they were counted correctly. The problem lies in a single clay receipt written 2 weeks ago, dampened, smudged, and barely legible. Your job? Translate the markings, verify the signatory, and draft a clean copy for review. You lower your stylus and begin shaping the clay. The tablet warms under your fingers. Each press is deliberate. You carve the sign for barley kia, narrow wedge, with a curled finial. Then the numeral 60. Then the sign for delivered. Then the names. You recognize one. Tahi Ashur, a trader from the north. He's known to over-report, but you can't write that. Your job isn't to accuse. It's to record. Outside, the sun rises higher, and the smell of bread and hot sand fills the air. Children run past the doorway, their laughter like birdsong. But inside, the only sound is the soft tap-tap of your stylus against the drying clay. Your colleague coughs. You glance at the storage shelves. There are dozens of tablets from this month. Alone, some will be kept in the temple archive. Others will be destroyed once reviewed. There's no room for clutter in the record house. Strangely, you find comfort in this. These dull tasks, repetitive, careful, boring, are building a new kind of world. One where memory is external. One where stories, debts, laws, even prayers can be revisited and compared. You're not a priest or a warrior. You'll never lead a conquest or carve your name on a monument. But you may, if your handwriting is neat enough, be read 4,000 years from now. Of course, you don't know that. You just know that your hands hurt, your reed is splitting, and the clerk next to you has spilled water on a finished inventory sheet. You look up, exhale, and start over. But what happens when the scribes begin writing things beyond trade? When clay tablets begin to hold not just inventories, but something closer to thoughts? Section 2. Clay, Contracts, and the Birth of Bureaucracy. The room is dimmer now. The sun has shifted. A soft breeze carries the smell of dust and sheep through the clay slat window. But inside your little archive chamber, nothing changes. Stylus moves, the clay cools, and the sound of gentle scratching continues, like beetles clicking through parchment. You've been promoted. Not a grand promotion, no parade, no new sandals, but you're now responsible for the temple's distribution. Records, which means barley rations, wool allotments, beer vouchers. Every shepherd, priest, baker, and brewer attached to your temple estate gets their daily share, and you're the one who makes sure they're fed or fined. You'd never thought of clay as political before. But now, with every ration token, you write, you see it. Clay governs. You press the stylus into a fresh tablet. One side holds today's rations. The other, the recipient's thumbprint. Not a drawing, not a name. An impression. A human's physical proof of presence. If someone disputes their payment, I never received my barley. I never took my wool. You show the print. The clay doesn't lie. Except, of course, when it does. Because just down the corridor, another scribe, a slick older apprentice named Ilbani, is known to press prints for absent workers. Friends usually, sometimes for extra rations. You don't report him. Not because you approve, but because you understand. Everyone eats. Everyone bends the system, just a little. Still, you write carefully. Each pressed wedge is a responsibility. These records aren't just for now. They're archived, stacked in reed baskets, or sealed into temple storerooms. Some are copies of older records, rewritten when the originals cracked or crumbled. Others are bound by contracts, etched legal agreements that bear the names of witnesses, terms of service, and even oaths. And the contracts? Those are the true beginning of the modern office. Imagine this. A brewer hires 2 assistants. She offers them 1 jar of barley beer each week in return for 6 days of labor. A tablet is written. The terms are marked. The workers press their nails into the clay. The scribe adds witness names, and the whole piece is dried in the sun. Done. No notary. No photocopy, just hardened clay. A single object that says, this happened. This is agreed. And because these tablets are durable, some survive for decades, some for centuries. There's a special room in the temple complex, an archive chamber where the oldest contracts are kept. You're allowed inside once a week to organize the oldest shelf. You love this room. It smells like dry earth and quiet time. Some tablets are blackened from an old fire, ironically. This made them more durable. Others are wrapped in clay envelopes, sealed and stamped, with miniature copies hidden inside to guard against tampering. You once found a tablet detailing a loan of silver and wool between two merchants, dated to the reign of King Urakajina nearly a century ago. The witness names were gone, worn away, but the agreement remained intact. In that moment, it struck you. You weren't just preserving lists, you were preserving trust. Clay became contract. Contract became custom. Custom became bureaucracy. All of it carved one line at a time, by people like you scribes with cramped fingers and sore backs, working by flickering oil lamps, eating flatbread and lentils between entries. And yes, it gets boring. The same symbols, the same lists. Day after day, but it's not meaningless. Take for example, the new system you've helped develop for beer tracking. It started last spring, when the temple ran low on barley rations. Brewing stopped, workers complained, panic ensued. You proposed an idea, separate tablets for ingredients and product. List the barley and date, note fermentation time, record the amount of beer produced, cross-reference with ration tablets. The priests scoffed at first, too complicated. But after the next shortage, they approved it. Now the temple beer accounts are the most accurate in the city. Ilbani teased you for weeks, called you tablet boy. But yesterday, he borrowed your format. Progress. Still, even systems have limits. This morning, a woman came demanding her husband's barley ration. He'd been a builder for the temple, but hadn't worked in days. You scanned the tablets. Nothing recent, no thumbprint, no name. Then he is dead, she said flatly. You offered condolences. She shook her head. Not yet, but by tomorrow. She left without food. You sat in silence for a long time after that. Sometimes clay is cold comfort. But by nightfall, you return to your reed mat, stretch your aching legs, and glance once more at the stack of drying tablets. You feel tired, but strangely steady. These marks, tiny, dull, repetitious, are anchoring a civilization. They make people accountable. They allow trade to flow between strangers. They record laws, lists, inventories, marriages, divorces, and even jokes. Yes, jokes. You once copied a scribe's marginal comment. The beer was weak. The priest was not. It's barely legible, but it made you smile. The first bureaucracies were boring. But boring, it turns out, can be the foundation of everything. Tomorrow you'll wake. You'll shape the clay. You'll press the signs, and quietly the world will continue. Section 3. From Clay to Canon. When the records began to speak, night falls softly in Uruk. The canals darken to ink. The torchbearers pass by in silence. Somewhere in the temple courtyard, a flute plays a low, wandering tune. And in your quiet corner of the record house you linger. One lamp still flickers above your desk. The tablets you finished today are cooling on a reed mat, their lines hardening with each hour. Most contain figures, receipts, contracts, bare, utilitarian things. But one tablet half finished, tucked beside your tools, holds something different. A story. You weren't asked to write it. It's not part of your daily duty. But you began. Anyway, just a few lines about the great flood, the gods who argued, and a king who built a boat. You'd heard the tale from your uncle, who'd heard it from his mother, who swore she knew someone who saw the waters rise. Now it lives in clay. And as you press the final sign of the sentence, a sign for life, shaped like a leaf, you wonder if anyone will ever read it. Not just copy it or store it, but read it for meaning, for memory. That's the moment. That's when the ledger becomes literature. Not long ago, writing was just for lists. The barley shipments, the debts, the livestock trades. But now, something is shifting. In the temple archives, priests have begun composing hymns, elegant lines to the goddess Inanna. Elsewhere, scribes draft royal edicts not only to command, but to impress. One bold clerk even wrote a curse tablet, blaming his neighbor for spoiling the goat stew. And it's spreading. In the scribal schools, boys now practice copying proverbs. A lion is fearsome, but a scribe lives forever. A poor man's plot, a scribe's writing board, both will feed the city. Someone has even started carving collections of sayings, jokes, lessons, short dialogues on small tablets, like portable thought crumbs. These aren't just data. They're ideas. And then there's the great king's epic. It's not finished. Yet rumors say it's still being revised, but portions of it circulate. A tale of a king who wandered the earth, seeking immortality after the death of his friend. It's said that when he returned, he didn't live forever, but the story might. In the silence of the record house, your fingers rest on your reed stylus. You've written thousands of signs over the past years. You know them like muscles know movement. And now you wonder, what else could they say? Could you write about the feeling of standing in floodwater as it laps your knees? The smell of burnt sesame in the morning market? The strange sadness you felt watching a delivery of oxen arrive in perfect rows? You don't know, not yet, but the tools are there. The clay, the stylus, the language. And you, somewhere in the distance, a temple bell sounds. Your supervisor stirs in his corner, mutters something about lamp oil, and shuffles out. You stay. You pick up the story tablet and read the first few lines aloud, just to hear the sound of it. And the words, those ancient, pressed shapes, echo softly in the chamber. Not loud, not dramatic, but enough. By the end of your life, the record house will be fuller than ever. The ledgers will grow longer, the contracts more complex, but the stories, those will quietly bloom. What began as barley counts and debt notes will evolve into laws. Hymns, proverbs, myths, lullabies, curses, riddles, and prayers. And clay will hold it all. It's easy to forget how much the world owes to boredom. To scribes with tired hands, to lists copied 100 times, to dry, repetitive labor done well. Won't be remembered, but your words? Maybe, because you didn't just shape the clay, you shaped memory itself. Story 2. The Whispering Broom of Tenochtitlan, Section 1. Before the dawn, the sweepers came. You wake to a rustle. Not a bird, not a voice, but the soft brush of sweeping. It is still dark. Though the stars have begun to dim, you rise, stretch your arms, and step into the soft air of Tenochtitlan. The year is 1491, and your city floats on water. Long causeways stretch toward the lake's misty edges. Canals weave through neighborhoods like silver threads. And everywhere is movement, but not shouting, not clamor, not yet. Just the hush of reed brooms. You are one of the Tlashpani, the street sweepers of the great city. You begin your rounds long before the market stalls open or the priests chant at dawn. Your job is to clear every walkway, canal edge, temple step, and house front of debris. It is a sacred task. Cleanliness is not a matter of comfort here. It is a matter of cosmic order. The gods, you were taught, value purity. The city must be in harmony. A cluttered street invites imbalance. A foul smell is not just unpleasant, it is dangerous. It weakens the world's fabric. So every morning, hundreds of you move silently through the city with your handmade brooms of woven palm. You do not speak unless spoken to. You work barefoot, so your steps are light. You do not complain. And as you sweep the smooth volcanic stones of the marketplace, you begin to notice how beautiful it is to see the city rise beneath your care. Tenochtitlan is massive, over 200,000. People live here, larger than Paris or Venice, with temples that gleam white under the sun, and canals so clean that you can see the turtles swimming beneath the surface. At the center, the Templo Mayor climbs high toward the sky. But even its stone steps must be scrubbed. Your broom is simple, a long shaft of wood bound with fiber and soft reeds. The tips whisper against the ground. You carry a basket for collected leaves, fish scales, discarded maize husks, and the occasional fallen flower. You are not a priest, not a warrior, not a merchant, but without you, the city falters. As you pass homes with neatly swept thresholds, some residents leave out a bowl of tamales for the sweepers. You take one, bow your head in thanks, and keep moving. Today is market day. You arrive just as vendors begin setting out their goods: jewelry, feathers, maize, chili, obsidian knives, cacao beans, and embroidered cloths. Some are barefoot like you. Some wear fine sandals. A few wear jaguar cloaks and speak with the clipped tone of nobles. No matter. The street is your responsibility. You clear a pile of dried leaves from beside the tamal stand. You notice a fish scale caught in a corner crack. You sweep it slowly and pause just long enough to breathe in the smell of roasted corn and wet stone. You find peace in this work. Not far away, a group of young students from the Kamakak, the priestly school, are learning ritual chants. You overhear a teacher reminding them, a clean heart begins with clean hands. A clean house begins with clean ground. You smile. Later, in the shadow of a small canal bridge, you find an old man sitting with his back against the wall. He's watching you sweep. He nods. "Young one," he says, "the first gods came from the dust. That's why we return it every morning." You bow your head. Not all wisdom wears feathers. As the sun rises over the lake, the city brightens. Ducks call out across the water. Vendors shout prices. Music begins from a distant courtyard. But you are already done with your section. You rest beneath a fig tree, your broom laid across your knees. Tomorrow, you'll do it again, and again, and again. But no one will notice. Not unless you stop, because the cleanest cities are invisible. And for 1,000 years, your work has made this place, the beating heart of the Mexica Empire, possible. Section 2. Trash, Tribute, and the cleanest city in the world. Midday in Tenochtitlan is a blaze of color and motion. By now, the sweepers have vanished from view. The brooms are stored, and the alleys are silent, except for the bustle of the markets and the clatter of wooden sandals on polished stone. But the city? It shines. Not metaphorically. Literally. The sun glints off wet streets that have already been sluiced clean. Refuse is gone. Debris is sorted, not by magic but by systems. Systems so old and precise that most citizens barely notice them. Except you. You've moved beyond your sweeping post. You're now an apprentice to Quihua, a city maintenance official. You work under an elder named Xochitl, who walks with a limp and a long list of inspections. Your new duty? Oversee the management of waste, water, and walkways for your district. And it is astonishing just how much this city organizes. Tenochtitlan floats on Lake Texcoco, built atop a series of chinampas raised farming beds and connected by causeways and canals. But none of it could function without cleanliness. Every district Kalpuli has assigned sanitation teams. Every team is rotated. Every street has set times for sweeping, washing, and inspection. Trash is not just thrown out. It is separated. Food scraps go to the pigs. Broken pottery is sent to the recyclers. Human waste, collected in ceramic pots and picked up by workers who ferry it by canoe to the Chinampa farms, where it is mixed with lake mud and used to fertilize maize and beans. Nothing is wasted. Not a stem, not a feather, not even bone. The clean canals are not a coincidence. Every canal is dredged, swept, and monitored. No one dumps refuse without permission. Even the water is managed by a system of floating gardens and stone-lined aqueducts. Some sourced from distant springs. You begin your rounds beside the marketplace, clipboard in hand. Well, not a clipboard, but a bundle of bark paper notes and a stick of black dye. You note, one food vendor failed to sort maize husks from bone. One canal corner has floating flower petals blocking the drain. One family has not yet paid their sweeping contribution. These are minor things, but left alone, they grow. And that's the truth about cleanliness in Tenochtitlan. It's not glamorous, it's not heroic, but it is relentless. After lunch, you travel to the tribute collection hall. Most visitors come to marvel at the feathers and cacao. But you've learned to pay attention to the unsung offerings. Hundreds of bundles of firewood, bricks of salt, and rolls of woven fiber used to make sandals, brooms, nets, and mats. A city this large cannot run on jewels alone. Everything has purpose. Tribute fuels not only temples and nobles, but the daily lives of sweepers, boatmen, cooks, and weavers. Every object must be cleaned, stored, repaired, or passed on. It's a dance of reuse and ritual. You're especially fond of the old sandals bin. Some are made from agave fiber, others from deer hide. None are wasted. Straps are repaired. Soles are patched. Worn-out pairs are ground into compost for chinampa soil. Even sandals, like people, are expected to serve more than once. At dusk, you visit a recycling courtyard behind the palace district. Here, workers sit beneath low awnings, repairing broken tools, retwining basket handles, stripping copper fittings from old pots. You sit quietly and help retie a broom head. The reed fibers are soft from wear. You smell earth, water, and sweat. Across from you, an old woman chuckles. "People think warriors built this city," she says, nodding a string. "But it was us, the ones who pick things up." You smile. She's not wrong. As the sun lowers over the lake, the shadows stretch long across the clean, silent streets. You finish your rounds. No one thanks you. No one notices. But everything works. Tomorrow, a new day will rise. The sweepers will return. The market will reopen. And once again, the city will breathe in rhythm. Tenochtitlan is clean not by accident, but by design, a living system. A civilization of compost and calendar. And you, quiet, broom-handed, and unnoticed, are part of the great machine. Not a blade, not a prayer, but a sweep. Section 3. When the sweepers disappeared and the dirt returned. The year is now 1521, and everything is falling apart. You are still in Tenochtitlan, but it is no longer clean. The streets are littered with broken pots, abandoned baskets, torn feather cloaks, the husks of fallen maize. The sweet scent of tumuli has vanished, replaced by rot and gunpowder. You no longer carry a broom. You carry water to the wounded. You were a sanitation official once, proud of your ledgers, your roots, your perfect brooms. But that was before the ships came. Before the pale-skinned strangers walked in steel and fire. Before the sickness bloomed and never stopped. Smallpox, they say. A disease the gods had never seen. It crept into the canals, then the houses, then the lungs. People died faster than you could bury them. Whole districts emptied overnight. The sweepers stopped showing up. The market closed. The priests fell silent, and without them, the system broke. It's hard to explain how much a city depends on hands. The quiet hands that scrape, wash, sort, and sweep. The ones that pull weeds from the canal banks, that rake ashes from the public fire pits, that boil the water, patch the mats, untangle the fishnets. You never noticed back then how many hands were needed to keep order. Now that they're gone, the city groans under its own weight. You remember when the streets changed. It was subtle at first. A sour smell near the temple steps, piles of leaves that stayed overnight, a floating cloak in the canal. No one had time to sweep. Everyone was mourning. Then came the noise. The strangers brought carts and boots and muskets. They laughed in the quiet zones. They threw refuse in the sacred lake. They fed horses in the courtyards and tethered them to clean pillars. When they took the palace, they burned the tribute ledgers. You watched one scribe, a friend, cling to a bundle of bark paper as it burned in his hands. "This is all they'll remember of us," he said. "And they won't understand a word." You tried to keep sweeping. You did. You and a few others gathered broken brooms. You returned to the canals. You swept one lane, then another. You tried to reclaim your section of the market, but it was never the same. Without the cycle, without the city-wide rhythm, the work lost its power. The trash returned faster than you could carry it. And one morning, as you bent to scoop a fishbone from a crack in the stone, you realized no one was coming behind you. No one was coming at all. The system was gone. And when the system leaves, the city does not just grow dirty. It begins to die. Years pass. The new rulers rename your city. They destroy the temples. They build churches from the same stones. And they pave over the canals. They think themselves modern, advanced. But their city is louder, filthier, slower. The lake recedes. The chinampas rot. And no one seems to remember the system that made it all hum like water in a reed flute. You keep a broom in your home. You still sweep, even if no one watches. Your neighbors chuckle, but a few begin doing the same. One even returns to the old ways, separating husks from bone, feeding pigs the scraps, laying reed mats to dry. It's small, but it's something. Before you pass, you bury your old broom in the soil beside a canal bank. What's left of it? You plant it like a seed, a soft prayer. Maybe someday, someone will remember that the strength of a civilization isn't in its warriors, or its priests, or its monuments. It's in the quiet labor, the daily rhythm, the humble act of sweeping. And how, if you do it well, the city doesn't just shine. It sings.